The massive space station hung in the void like a metal flower, its silver petals stretching for hundreds of kilometers. Ambassador Vexathi stood on the observation deck, watching the newest ships arrive through the quantum tunnel gate. The gate itself was a wonder to behold, a ring of pure energy larger than most moons, crackling with power that bent space itself. This was how it had always been. The Galactic Prosperity Council controlled every gate in known space. No species could travel between stars without their permission. No one could build the gates without the exotic matter that only the Council could produce. For 3,000 years, this system had brought peace and order to the galaxy. "The humans have arrived," announced his aide, a thin creature with 6 arms and crystal skin. "Their delegation is requesting an audience." Vexathi turned from the window. Through his 4 eyes, he could see the primitive human ship docking with the station. It was a crude thing, powered by fusion rockets that took months to travel between planets. The humans had only recently learned to leave their homeworld. They were like children playing with fire. "Send them to Conference Room 7, he said, the standard integration chamber. He had done this hundreds of times before. A new species would discover space travel. They would send out signals. The Council would respond with an offer of friendship and prosperity. The species would join the galactic community, following the rules that kept everyone safe and happy. The humans would be no different. An hour later, Vexathi entered the conference room. 3 humans sat at the metal table, looking small and fragile in their environment suits. He had studied their files. Dr. Sarah Chen, their lead diplomat. Admiral Marcus Webb, a military officer with hard eyes. Dr. James Morrison, their top scientist. "Welcome to the Galactic Prosperity Council," Vexathi said, his voice translator making the words sound warm and friendly. "I am Ambassador Vexathi. We have been watching your species with great interest." Dr. Chen leaned forward. "Thank you for meeting with us. We're honored to make contact with galactic civilization." "The honor is ours," Vexathi replied. He activated a holographic display, showing the local star cluster. Blue lines connected the systems, marking the gate network. "Your species has achieved fusion power and basic spaceflight. This qualifies you for limited integration into our community," Admiral Webb spoke up. "What does that mean exactly?" "It means freedom," Vexathi said. "Freedom to explore the stars, to trade with other species, to expand beyond your single world." The hologram zoomed in on 3 star systems near Earth. "We can offer you these colony worlds, rich planets with breathable atmospheres. Your people could spread across 3 systems within the next 50 years. Dr. Chen's eyes lit up. "That's incredible. What would we need to do?" Vexathi waved a hand and new data appeared in the hologram. Mining operations, shipping routes, production schedules. "Your world is rich in rare earth elements, metals that are essential for gate construction and maintenance. We would need 60% of your annual production." 60%? Admiral Webb's voice was sharp. "That seems like a lot." "It is the standard rate for all member species," Vexathi explained patiently. "These materials are vital for maintaining the gate network that benefits everyone. Without the gates, interstellar civilization would collapse." Dr. Morrison had been quiet, studying the technical displays. "How do the gates work exactly?" Vexathi smiled. It was always the scientists who asked the important questions. "They use exotic matter to create tunnels through folded space-time. The technology is quite complex. Only the Council has the knowledge and resources to build them. Could you share that technology with us?" "I'm afraid not," Vexathi said. "The gates require careful coordination. If every species tried to build their own, the results would be catastrophic. Space-time could tear apart. The galaxy could be destroyed." That was not entirely true, but it was what the Council told all new species. The real reason was simpler. If everyone could build gates, the Council would lose its power. The exotic matter was rare, but not impossible to find. The technology was advanced, but not beyond the reach of intelligent species. The Council had simply made sure that no one else ever got the chance to learn it. Admiral Webb was frowning. What other restrictions would there be? Very few, Vexathi assured him. You may not build ships capable of faster-than-light travel. All interstellar transport must use our gates. You may not research space-folding technology or exotic matter production. These are simply safety measures. Safety measures that keep you in control, Webb said quietly. Dr. Chen shot him a warning look. What Admiral Webb means is that we want to understand our place in this arrangement. Your place is as valued partners, Vexathi said. The Council provides stability and order. Individual species provide resources and labor. Everyone benefits, but not everyone benefited equally, and they all knew it. The Council species lived in luxury on garden worlds, their every need provided by the vast network of client races. The clients worked and shipped their resources through the gates, always dependent on Council goodwill for access to the wider galaxy. Dr. Chen looked at her companions. They had discussed this moment for months during their journey to the meeting point. Earth needed resources. The population was growing. Climate change was forcing them to look beyond their home world. They had no choice. We'll need to discuss this with our government, she said. Of course, Vexathi nodded. Take all the time you need. But remember, this is a limited-time offer. Other species are always interested in expansion opportunities. That was a lie, too. The three systems had been empty for centuries, but urgency always helped close a deal. 2 weeks later, the human delegation returned with an answer. They had been authorized to sign the integration treaty. Dr. Chen's hands shook slightly as she put her signature on the document. Admiral Webb looked like he was signing his own death warrant. Dr. Morrison just stared at the technical appendices, already planning how to work within the new restrictions. Excellent, Vexathi said as he sealed the agreement. Welcome to the Galactic community. Council engineers will arrive at your system within 6 months to begin construction of your local gate. As the humans left, Vexathi felt the familiar satisfaction of another successful integration. The humans would mine their rare earths and ship them through the gates. They would settle their 3 permitted worlds and be grateful for the privilege. In a few generations, they would barely remember what it had been like to dream of the stars. But something nagged at him as he watched their ship depart. Admiral Webb's suspicious questions, Dr. Morrison's intense interest in gate technology. The way Dr. Chen had looked like she was making a deal with the devil. Most species were eager to join galactic civilization. They saw only the benefits: new worlds, new knowledge, protection from hostile forces. The humans had seemed almost reluctant, as if they knew they were giving up something precious. Vexathi dismissed the thought. Every species had its pride. Every species thought it was special. The humans would learn, just as all the others had learned. The Council's way was the only way that worked. In the depths of space, the human ship accelerated toward the quantum tunnel gate. Inside, Dr. Chen was composing her report to Earth. Admiral Webb was reviewing the treaty's military implications. Dr. Morrison was making notes about exotic matter and space-folding theory. None of them spoke during the journey home. There was nothing to say. They had sold their species freedom for a handful of worlds and the promise of safety. It was probably the smart choice. Certainly the only choice, but it didn't feel right. The gate swallowed their ship in a flash of twisted light, carrying them back toward Earth. Behind them, Ambassador Vexathi was already preparing for his next meeting. Another species had just achieved fusion power. Another integration was about to begin. The Galactic Prosperity Council's work was never done. Order had to be maintained. The gates had to be controlled. The galaxy had to be kept safe from the chaos that would surely follow if everyone was allowed to reach for the stars on their own terms. It was better this way. It had always been better this way. The humans would understand that eventually. Dr. Elena Vasquez rubbed her tired eyes and stared at the equations floating in the holographic display. 3 years had passed since humanity signed the treaty with the Council. 3 years of mining rare earths and shipping them through the quantum gates. 3 years of following the rules and staying within their assigned boundaries. She was supposed to be working on improved fusion reactors. That was her official job at the Luna Research Station. The Council allowed such research because it helped Earth's colonies become more efficient. Better fusion meant more mining, which meant more resources flowing through their gates. But Elena had always been curious about other things. "Run the simulation again," she told the computer. The display shifted, showing space-time as a grid of lines that bent and twisted around massive objects. According to Einstein's old theories, space and time were like a fabric that could be warped. The Council's gates punched holes through this fabric, creating tunnels between distant points. Elena's research suggested something different might be possible. Dr. Vasquez? Her assistant, Tommy Park, stuck his head through the lab door. "The night shift is over. Shouldn't you go get some sleep?" "In a minute," she said, not looking away from the display. "Look at this, Tommy. What if we didn't need to punch holes in space-time? What if we could just bend it?" Tommy came closer, studying the equations. He was young but brilliant, one of the few people Elena trusted with her unofficial research. "You mean like the old Alcubierre drive theory?" Exactly like that, but better. Elena manipulated the display, showing how space-time could be compressed in front of a ship and expanded behind it. "Miguel Alcubierre thought you needed exotic matter with negative mass, impossible to create with our technology. But what if he was wrong about that part?" The simulation showed a ship riding a wave of warped space, moving faster than light without actually exceeding the speed limit. It was like surfing on the fabric of reality itself. "The Council says this kind of research is forbidden," Tommy said quietly. "The Council says a lot of things." Elena saved her work and encrypted the files. "They say their way is the only safe way. They say independent FTL research could destroy the galaxy, but they never explain why." Over the next few months, Elena worked in secret. She recruited a small team of researchers who shared her curiosity about the forbidden sciences. Dr. Yuki Tanaka, a specialist in quantum field theory, Dr. Ahmed Hassan, an expert in exotic matter physics, Dr. Lisa Chen, Sarah Chen's younger sister, who understood space-time mathematics better than anyone. They called themselves the Alcubierre Group, and they met in unused sections of the research station after official hours. Elena's theory was elegant in its simplicity. Instead of using exotic matter with impossible properties, they could manipulate quantum vacuum fluctuations to achieve the same effect. "The vacuum isn't empty," Elena explained during one of their midnight sessions. "It's full of virtual particles appearing and disappearing constantly. We just need to convince them to appear in one place and disappear in another." "Easier said than done," Dr. Hassan pointed out. "The energy requirements would be enormous, not—" "If we do it right," Elena said. She showed them her latest calculations. "We don't need to power the entire effect. We just need to start it. Once the space-time bubble forms, it becomes self-sustaining." Dr. Tanaka looked skeptical. "That sounds too good to be true." "Most breakthroughs do," Elena replied, "until someone builds them." The work was slow and dangerous. They had to be careful not to attract attention from Council inspectors who visited the research station regularly. They had to use only equipment that wouldn't be missed. Most importantly, they had to make sure their experiments didn't create any exotic signatures that Council sensors might detect. Their first successful test was tiny, a microscopic bubble of warped space that lasted for 3 nanoseconds. But it proved the theory worked. Space-time could be bent without exotic matter. The impossible was possible. "We need to tell someone," Dr. Hassan said after they confirmed the results. "Not yet," Elena warned. "We need a working prototype first. Something big enough to move." an actual ship. That took another 6 months. Working with salvaged parts and improvised equipment, they built their first Alcubierre Vasquez drive in an abandoned mining facility on the dark side of Luna. The device looked like a metal ring, surrounded by complex field generators, nothing like the massive council gates with their exotic matter cores. "It's beautiful," Tommy said as they powered up the drive for its first full test. Elena felt her heart pounding as she initiated the startup sequence. Months of theory and calculation had led to this moment. Either they were about to make history, or they were about to prove that the Council was right about the dangers of independent FTL research. The ring began to glow with a soft blue light. Space around it started to bend, creating visual distortions like heat shimmer. The test probe, a simple metal sphere with basic sensors, sat in the center of the field. "Field stability at 90%, Dr. Tanaka reported. "Quantum fluctuation. Patterns are holding," added Dr. Hassan. Elena took a deep breath and activated the drive. Reality twisted around the probe, and then it was gone. Not destroyed, not vaporized. Simply gone. As if it had never existed. For a moment, Elena thought, they had failed catastrophically. Then her computer chimed with an incoming signal. The probe was transmitting from a position 3 million kilometers away near Earth orbit. "It worked," Tommy whispered. Holy shit, it actually worked. The probe had traveled 3 million kilometers. In less than a second, riding a bubble of warped space-time. It had achieved faster-than-light travel without using any of the Council's technology or restrictions. "We need to get word to Admiral Webb," Dr. Chen said, "and to my sister." Elena nodded, but her mind was already racing ahead to the implications. If they could move a probe, they could move a ship. If they could move a ship, they could go anywhere in the galaxy without using Council gates. Humanity wouldn't need permission anymore. They could explore the stars on their own terms, but there was another implication, one that made her stomach clench with fear. The Council's entire power structure was based on their monopoly over FTL travel. If that monopoly was broken, if other species could build their own drives. "We have to be very careful about this," she said. "The Council won't react well to losing their control over galactic transport." "What are you thinking?" Dr. Hassan asked. Elena looked at her small team of researchers. They had stumbled onto something that could change the balance of power in the galaxy. They could free humanity from Council restrictions. They could give other species the same freedom, or they could start a war that would tear the galaxy apart. "I'm thinking we need to be ready for anything," she said finally. "The Council has been in control for 3,000 years. They won't give that up easily." Over the next few weeks, word spread carefully through Earth's government and military leadership. Admiral Webb arrived at Luna personally to witness a demonstration of the drive. Dr. Sarah Chen came too, along with representatives from several major Earth governments. "This is incredible," Admiral Webb said as he watched their third successful test. "How fast can it go?" "Theoretical maximum is about 1,000 times the speed of light," Elena explained. "With refinements, maybe more. A trip to the Andromeda Galaxy would take about 2,000 years instead of 2 million. And it doesn't require any Council technology." "None at all. Everything we need can be produced with Earth's industrial capacity." Admiral Webb exchanged glances with Dr. Chen. They were both thinking the same thing. This changed everything. Humanity no longer needed to depend on Council gates for interstellar travel. They could explore the galaxy freely, settle new worlds without permission, trade with other species on equal terms. But they also understood what Elena had realized weeks earlier. The Council would see this as an existential threat. They would do everything in their power to stop it. "How long would it take to build a fleet of ships with these drives?" Webb asked. "With full industrial support? Maybe 2 years for a dozen ships, 5 years for 100. "Do it," Dr. Chen said, but quietly. "The Council can't know what we're doing until we're ready." Elena nodded, but she knew it would be almost impossible to hide a project this large. The Council had spies and sensors everywhere. Eventually, they would notice that Earth was building ships with unusual power signatures and no apparent FTL drives. When that happened, humanity would need to be ready to defend itself. The meeting broke up with plans to begin immediate construction of a secret fleet. Elena returned to her lab where Tommy was running calculations on drive efficiency improvements. "What do you think will happen when the Council finds out?" he asked. Elena looked out the window at Earth, hanging blue and beautiful in the black sky. Somewhere out there, Council ships patrolled the gate network, maintaining order and control. Soon, that control would be challenged for the first time in 3,000 years. "I think," she said slowly, "we're about to find out what freedom really costs." Inspector Kelmac's 6 arms moved independently as he examined the mining reports from the human colony on Kepler 442b. Something was wrong with the numbers. The rare Earth production was exactly what it should be according to the quota. The shipping schedules matched perfectly. Everything was too perfect. In 30 years of inspecting Council client species, Kelmac had learned to spot the signs of hidden activity. Species that were planning rebellion always tried too hard to look normal. Their reports became too precise, their explanations too detailed. The humans showed all the classic symptoms. "Run a deep scan of the mining equipment," he ordered his technical aide. "Look for any modifications or unauthorized technology." The scan results made his 4 hearts skip a beat. The human mining lasers had been modified with quantum resonance chambers. The ore processors included exotic particle detectors. Most troubling of all, several mining sites showed traces of space-time distortion that couldn't be explained by any approved technology. Kelmac had found evidence of illegal FTL research. "Contact Admiral Vex Athi immediately," he told his communications officer. "Priority 1 emergency signal." 6 hours later, a Council enforcement cruiser arrived at Kepler 442b. Kelmac met with the human colonial governor, a nervous woman named Maria Santos, and presented his findings. "These modifications to your equipment are in direct violation of the Integration Treaty," he said. "Can you explain their purpose?" Governor Santos shifted uncomfortably in her chair. "We've been trying to improve mining efficiency. The modifications help us extract more ore from each site. Quantum resonance chambers are used for exotic matter research," Kelmac pointed out. "Exotic matter research is forbidden under Council law." "We weren't researching exotic matter," Santos insisted. "We were just trying to find ways to increase production." Kelmac studied the human's biosigns. Elevated heart rate, increased perspiration, dilated pupils. She was lying, badly. More importantly, she was scared. Not the fear of someone caught violating mining quotas, but the terror of someone whose entire species was about to be exposed. "I'm placing this colony under investigation lockdown," he announced. "No ships may enter or leave this system until the Council determines the extent of these violations." Within hours of the lockdown order, something unprecedented happened. A human ship appeared in the system without using the quantum gate. It simply materialized at the edge of sensor range, moving faster than light through normal space. The impossible had become possible. Kelmac watched his sensors in stunned silence as the human ship approached. It showed no exotic matter signatures, no quantum tunnel emissions. By all known laws of physics, it shouldn't exist. Yet there it was, proving that everything the Council believed about FTL travel was wrong. "Send an emergency message to the Council capital," he ordered. "Maximum priority. The humans have developed independent FTL technology." The ship that had appeared was the UES Freedom, one of humanity's new Alcubierre Vasquez drive vessels. On board, Dr. Elena Vasquez was preparing for the most important presentation of her life. In a few hours, she would stand before the Galactic Assembly and reveal humanity's breakthrough to the entire galaxy. Admiral Webb had wanted to keep the technology secret longer, to build a larger fleet before revealing their capability. Dr. Sarah Chen had argued for gradual disclosure through diplomatic channels, but Elena knew that secrecy was no longer possible. Council inspectors were getting too close, and other human colonies were showing similar signs of forbidden research. Better to reveal the truth on their own terms than to be caught in a lie. The Freedom docked with Inspector Kelmac's ship, and Elena requested a meeting. The inspector was a tall, thin creature with gray skin and too many joints in his limbs. His 4 eyes studied her with the intensity of a predator examining prey. "Dr. Vasquez," he said through his translator, "I assume you're here to explain how your ship achieved faster-than-light travel without using our gates." "I am," Elena replied calmly, "but not to you. I'm here to invite you to witness humanity's address to the Galactic Assembly." Kelmac's eyes widened. "The Assembly? You don't have the authority to address the Assembly. Under Article 15 of the Galactic Charter, any species may request an emergency session to address matters of universal significance," Elena said. "I believe our discovery qualifies." 2 days later, representatives from over 200 species gathered in the great amphitheater on the Council capital world. The chamber was a massive dome of crystal and metal, with seats arranged in concentric circles around a central speaking platform. Elena stood at that platform, looking up at thousands of alien faces staring down at her. Ambassador Vexathi sat in the council's elevated section, his 4 eyes burning with barely controlled anger. Chairman Mordak, the ancient ruler of the council, leaned forward in his throne-like seat. Around the chamber, representatives from dozens of client species whispered among themselves, wondering why the humans had called this unprecedented meeting. "Honorable delegates," Elena began. Her voice amplified throughout the chamber. 3 years ago, humanity joined the galactic community as a client species of the Prosperity Council. We were told that the Council's way was the only safe way to travel between the stars. We were told that independent FTL research would be catastrophic. We were told that we needed to follow the rules for our own good. Murmurs rippled through the assembly. Several council members looked uncomfortable. "Today," Elena continued, "I'm here to tell you that we were lied to." The chamber erupted in shocked gasps and angry shouts. Chairman Mordak slammed his ceremonial staff against the floor, calling for order. Elena waited for the noise to die. Down before continuing. The council claims that only they can safely build FTL drives. They say their exotic matter technology is the only option. They use this claimed monopoly to control who can travel between stars and who cannot. Elena activated a holographic display showing her equations. But their monopoly is based on a lie. There are other ways to achieve faster-than-light travel. Safer ways. Better ways. Ambassador Vexathi stood up. "This is outrageous. The human delegate has no authority to make such claims. Their species lacks the scientific knowledge to understand these matters." "Then perhaps," Elena said with a slight smile, "you can explain how I arrived at this assembly." The chamber fell silent. Every delegate had received the same report. A human ship had appeared at the capital world without using any gates. It had traveled from Earth to the galactic core in less than 6 hours, a journey that should have taken weeks through the gate network. "Our ship, the UES Freedom, is equipped with an Alcubierre Vasquez drive," Elena announced. "It warps space-time itself to achieve faster-than-light travel. It requires no exotic matter, no quantum tunnels, no massive infrastructure. Most importantly, it can be built by any species with sufficient knowledge of quantum physics." The implications hit the chamber like a physical blow. Delegates from client species stared at Elena with growing excitement. If what she said was true, they wouldn't need the Council's permission to explore the stars. They could build their own ships, travel to their own chosen worlds, trade with whomever they wanted. They could be free. Chairman Mordak rose from his throne, his ancient voice booming through the chamber. These claims are absurd and dangerous. Independent FTL technology would destabilize the galactic order. Wars would break out over territory and resources. Civilization itself would collapse. Would it? Elena asked. Or would you simply lose your ability to control everyone else? How dare you? Vexathi snarled. The Council has maintained peace for 3,000 years. Peace through oppression isn't peace, Elena replied. It's slavery with better marketing. She turned to address the full assembly. The Council wants you to believe that you need them, that you're too primitive, too dangerous, too stupid to be trusted with true freedom. But look around this chamber. Every species here achieved spaceflight on their own. Every species here developed fusion power, quantum mechanics, advanced mathematics. You're not children who need the Council's protection. You're intelligent beings who deserve the right to reach for the stars. A delegate from the Zephyrian Union stood up. If this technology exists, why haven't you shared it? Because we're sharing it now, Elena said. She activated another display showing the technical specifications for the Alcubierre-Vasquez drive. These are the complete plans. Any species with industrial space capability can build these drives. The only requirement is the will to be free. The chamber exploded into chaos. Delegates shouted questions, accusations, demands for proof. Some called Elena a fraud, others a liberator. Council members demanded the assembly be dissolved, while client species representatives demanded more information. Through it all, Chairman Mordak sat silent on his throne, his ancient mind calculating the implications. For 3,000 years, the Council had ruled through information control. They had convinced the galaxy that their way was the only way, their technology the only safe option. Now a young human scientist had shattered that illusion in a single presentation. Inspector Kelmac watched from his seat in the observer section, remembering his shock when the human ship had first appeared. He had served the Council faithfully, for decades, believing in their mission to maintain galactic order. But Elena's words forced him to ask uncomfortable questions. How many species had been held back by artificial restrictions? How many worlds remained unexplored because the Council limited access to the gate network? How much progress had been sacrificed to maintain their power? As the chaos in the chamber reached its peak, Elena made one final statement. The Council will tell you that humanity is young and reckless. They'll say we don't understand the consequences of our actions, but we understand something they seem to have forgotten. Freedom is worth any risk. She looked directly at Chairman Mordak. Your age of control is ending. The age of freedom has begun. The old ruler's eyes burned with fury, but Elena could see something else there too. Fear. For the first time in millennia, the Council faced a threat they couldn't control or contain. As Elena left the speaking platform, representatives from dozens of species crowded around her, asking for copies of the drive specifications, offering alliances, promising support against Council retaliation. The revolution had begun, and there was no stopping it now. In his private chambers high above the assembly hall, Chairman Mordak stared out at the stars and contemplated the end of everything he had spent his long life building. The humans had done more than develop new technology. They had given the galaxy hope for something better than managed subjugation. That hope would have to be crushed before it could spread further. He reached for his communication device and began issuing orders to the Council fleet. If the humans wanted a war over freedom, he would give them one. But it would be a war they could never win. Admiral Marcus Webb stood on the bridge of the UES Defiance, watching through the view screen as Council dreadnoughts emerged from the quantum tunnel gate near Earth. 12 massive ships, each one larger than anything humanity had ever built, bristling with weapons that could crack planets. Chairman Mordak had sent them to end the human rebellion before it could spread. It should have been a massacre. Sir, we're receiving a transmission from the lead dreadnought, his communications. Officer reported, put it through. The screen filled with the image of Admiral Thekvar, one of the Council's most decorated military commanders. His reptilian features were set in a grim expression as he delivered his ultimatum. Admiral Webb, by order of Chairman Mordak, humanity, is declared in violation of the Galactic Peace Treaty. You will surrender your illegal FTL technology and submit to Council authority, or Earth will be pacified by force. Webb had expected this moment for months. Ever since Elena's revelation, at the Galactic Assembly, the Council had been mobilizing their enforcement fleets. Intelligence reports suggested they were planning to make an example of humanity, to show other species what happened to those who challenged Council authority. "I'm afraid I can't do that, Admiral," Webb replied calmly. "Humanity claims the right to travel freely among the stars. We will defend that right." Thekvar's laugh was harsh and grating. "You have 12 ships, Admiral. I have 12 dreadnoughts, each one capable of destroying your entire fleet. Surrender now, and your species will be allowed to survive under Council supervision." "Respectfully, Admiral," Webb said with a slight smile, "you need to update your intelligence reports." The human ships that had been hiding behind Earth's moon suddenly appeared throughout the system, their Alcubierre Vasquez drives allowing them to materialize wherever they wanted. Not 12 ships, but 60, and they weren't alone. Zephyrian cruisers, crystalline collective destroyers, and ships from a dozen other species that had built their own drives using Elena's specifications. Thekvar's expression shifted from confidence to confusion to alarm as his sensors registered the new contacts. "Impossible. Our intelligence indicated you had only a small fleet." "Your intelligence was based on the assumption that we'd fight like you," Webb explained. "Massed formations, predictable tactics, battles fought at fixed locations. But why would we do that when we can be anywhere we want, any time we want?" To demonstrate his point, Webb ordered a tactical jump. The Defiance vanished from its position and reappeared directly behind the Council flagship, well inside their defensive perimeter. The other human ships did the same, surrounding the Council fleet in a matter of seconds. "This is how wars are fought, when both sides can bend space-time," Webb said. "Would you like to reconsider your ultimatum?" But Thekvar was a veteran of a dozen campaigns against primitive species who could barely leave their home systems. He had never faced an enemy with tactical mobility equal to his own. His response was to order his ships to open fire on the nearest human vessels. The battle lasted exactly 17 minutes. Council dreadnoughts were designed for overwhelming firepower and massive armor. They were meant to pound enemy positions from a safe distance while their own defenses absorbed return fire. But their weapons couldn't hit targets that could teleport across the battlefield in an instant, and their armor was useless against enemies that could appear anywhere. Human ships danced through space like ghosts, striking at the Council formation, from impossible angles before vanishing and reappearing elsewhere. When the Council tried to pursue, they found only empty space. When they tried to retreat to a defensive formation, human ships materialized inside their formation. The UES Freedom, Dr. Elena Vasquez's original prototype, appeared directly above Admiral Thekvar's flagship and dropped a gravity mine onto its hull. The mine didn't explode. It simply created a localized gravity field that pulled the massive dreadnought's armor plating apart like tissue paper. "Admiral Thekvar," Webb's voice came over the emergency channel as the Council flagship, "lost life support. This is what happens when you try to fight the future with weapons from the past. Are you ready to discuss terms?" The surviving Council ships surrendered within the hour. But the Battle of Earth was only the beginning. Across the galaxy, other Council fleets were learning the same harsh lesson. The rigid tactics that had served them for millennia were worse than useless against enemies who could appear and disappear at will. On the industrial world of Vega Prime, a Council patrol squadron arrived to find the system's mining facilities had been liberated by ships flying flags from 20 different species. When they tried to retake the facilities, human and Zephyrian ships appeared from nowhere, disabled their weapons, and offered them a choice: surrender or be destroyed. Most chose surrender. In the Rigel sector, a council enforcement fleet cornered what they thought was a small rebel convoy. The convoy turned out to be bait. When the council ships moved in for the kill, they found themselves surrounded by over 100 vessels equipped with Alcubierre Vasquez drives. The entire sector fleet was captured without firing a shot. The worst defeat came at the council's major military base in the Centauri cluster. Admiral Webb led a combined task force of human, Zephyrian, and crystalline ships in a daring assault that appeared to be suicide. Centauri base was defended by over 200 warships and massive orbital fortresses. But Webb's ships didn't attack the base directly. Instead, they appeared throughout the surrounding systems and began systematically destroying every quantum tunnel gate in the region. Without the gates, the base's defenders couldn't receive reinforcements or retreat to other positions. They were trapped. "This is Admiral Webb to Centauri Base Command," he broadcast as the last gate was destroyed. "Your supply lines have been cut. Your reinforcements can't reach you. Surrender now, and your personnel will be treated according to galactic warfare conventions." The base commander, Admiral Zekmoth, was one of the Council's most experienced officers. He understood the tactical situation perfectly. His ships were powerful, but they were trapped in a single system against enemies who could strike from any direction and retreat instantly if the battle went against them. "What are your terms?" he asked. "Simple," Webb replied. "Recognize the right of all species to build and use their own FTL technology, end the Council's monopoly on interstellar travel, allow free passage through existing gate networks, and if I refuse," Webb's voice was cold and implacable, "then you'll sit here until your supplies run out and your crews mutiny. The age of enforcing galactic law through superior firepower is over, Admiral. Adapt or become irrelevant." Zekmoth looked around his command center at officers who had served the Council faithfully for decades. He saw doubt in their eyes, fear, about what their future held in a galaxy where their massive fleets could be outmaneuvered by a handful of rebel ships. "I surrender," he said quietly. "Centauri base stands down." The news of the surrender spread across the galaxy within hours. The Council's most powerful military base had fallen without a single shot being fired in its defense. Their greatest admirals had been outmaneuvered by a species they had dismissed as primitive and reckless. More importantly, the victory proved that the Council's military dominance was an illusion. Their massive fleets were relics of an earlier age, designed to fight enemies who were limited by traditional physics. Against opponents who could bend space-time, traditional naval tactics were useless. In his palace on the Council capital world, Chairman Mordak watched the reports of defeat after defeat with growing desperation. His military advisors assured him that they could still win if they concentrated their remaining forces for a decisive battle. His intelligence services insisted that the rebellion would collapse once their leaders were captured or killed. But Mordak was old and cunning. He had ruled the galaxy for over 1,000 years by understanding the deeper currents of power and influence. The military defeats were painful, but not necessarily fatal. What terrified him was the political collapse that followed. Every day brought new reports of client species declaring independence from Council authority. The Zephyrian Union had publicly announced their withdrawal from all Council treaties. The Crystalline Collective was sharing Alcubierre Vasquez drive technology with any species that requested it. Even some of the Council's own member species were beginning to question whether the old system served anyone except the ruling elite. "Sir," his aide announced, "Ambassador Vexathi is requesting an emergency meeting." Mordak nodded wearily. Vexathi had been instrumental in bringing the humans into the Council system. Perhaps he had insights into how to resolve this crisis before it destroyed everything they had built. The ambassador entered the chamber looking haggard and defeated. His usually immaculate appearance was disheveled, his 4 eyes red with exhaustion. "Chairman," he said, "I've just received word from the Kepler colonies. The humans have established a new government called the Free Stars Coalition. They're offering membership to any species that wants to join." And 47 species have already applied, Vexathi said quietly, including 3 of our own council members. Mordak felt something cold settle in his chest. The humans hadn't just developed new technology. They had created an alternative to the council system itself. Instead of demanding tribute and obedience, they were offering partnership and cooperation. Instead of restricting access to FTL travel, they were sharing it freely with anyone who asked. It was everything the council was not. "What do you recommend?" Mordak asked. Vexathi looked out the window at the capital city below, where protests were becoming more common as word of the military defeat spread. "I think, sir, that we need to consider the possibility that the humans are right. Maybe our way isn't the only way. Maybe it isn't even the best way." Mordak studied his old friend's face. He saw resignation there and something that might have been relief. Vexathi had served the council faithfully for centuries, but like many of the older members, he was tired of maintaining an empire through fear and control. "Are you suggesting we surrender?" "I'm suggesting we negotiate," Vexathi replied. "While we still have something left to negotiate with." Outside the palace, another protest march was forming in the streets. Citizens from a dozen different species carried signs demanding an end to the war, an end to the monopolies, an end to the system that had kept them dependent for so long. The age of control was ending, just as Dr. Elena Vasquez had predicted. The only question was whether it would end through negotiation or through complete collapse. Admiral Webb's next transmission arrived that evening, broadcast simultaneously to every world in council space. "Chairman Mordak," Webb said, his image appearing on screens across hundreds of star systems. "The Free Stars Coalition hereby offers the Galactic Prosperity Council a chance to join the new galactic order as equal partners. Your expertise in managing interstellar infrastructure would be valuable in helping build a better future for all species." He paused, letting the offer sink in. "But understand this. The age of enforced monopolies is over. The age of keeping species dependent on artificial restrictions is over. The galaxy belongs to all of us, not just those who happen to develop FTL technology first." The transmission ended, leaving Mordak alone with his thoughts and the weight of 3,000 years of galactic history. For the first time in his long life, he wondered if the humans might actually be offering something better than what the council had built. Chairman Mordak stood at the bridge viewport of his personal dreadnought, the Eternal Order, as it approached the Sol system. Around him, the largest fleet the council had ever assembled moved through space in perfect formation. 500 ships, representing the combined might of every species that remained loyal to the old system. It was his last gambit. Everything else had failed. Diplomatic negotiations had collapsed when the Free Stars Coalition refused to recognize council authority over FTL technology. Economic pressure had backfired as more species joined the coalition and stopped paying tribute. Military strikes had been defeated by enemies who could appear and disappear at will. If he couldn't destroy Earth and crush the human rebellion here and now, the Council's 3,000-year reign would end. "Sir," his tactical officer reported, "we're detecting massive fleet movements throughout the system. Human ships are taking defensive positions around Earth and Luna." Mordak nodded. He had expected resistance. Intelligence reports suggested the humans had built over 200 ships with their new drive technology. A formidable force, but not enough to stop 500 Council dreadnoughts in direct battle. "And the coalition allies?" he asked. "Sensors show—" "Sir, this is impossible." "Report!" The tactical officer's voice shook as he read the scanner data. "We're detecting ships from 93 different species. Zephyrian battlecruisers, crystalline destroyers, aquatic collective carriers, even some ships I don't recognize. Total count is approaching 800 vessels." Mordak felt his blood turn cold. 800 ships, all equipped with Alcubierre Vasquez drives, all representing species that had thrown off council control. The humans hadn't just started a rebellion, they had created a new galactic civilization. "Sir, the communications," officer announced. We're receiving a transmission from the Coalition flagship. Put it through. The screen filled with the image of Admiral Marcus Webb standing on the bridge of his command ship. Behind him, Mordak could see officers from dozens of different species working together as if they had served together for years. "Chairman Mordak," Webb said calmly, "welcome to Sol System. I assume you're here to discuss terms for ending this conflict." "I'm here to end your rebellion," Mordak replied. "Surrender now, and I might allow your species to survive under council." Supervision. Webb's smile was grim. "I'm afraid that's not going to happen, but I appreciate the opportunity to show you something." The tactical display lit up as new contacts appeared throughout the system. Not just the 800 ships his sensors had already detected, but thousands more. Ships from every corner of the galaxy, representing over 200 species. Some were barely larger than shuttles. Others were massive colony vessels. All of them bore the insignia of the Free Stars Coalition. "This isn't just a fleet," Webb explained. "It's an evacuation. Every ship you see carries refugees from Council oppression. Species that were forbidden to explore space on their own terms. Colonies that were taxed into poverty to feed your gate network. People who were told they weren't advanced enough to be trusted with freedom." Mordak stared at the display in growing horror. There were more coalition ships in the Sol system than the Council had built in the last century. More importantly, they represented a level of cooperation between species that his empire had never achieved. "They're here because Earth has become something the Council never was," Webb continued. "A place where different species can work together as equals, where technology is shared freely instead of hoarded by the powerful, where exploration and discovery are encouraged instead of restricted." "This is chaos," Mordak protested. "Without central control, there will be wars, conflicts, disasters." "Maybe," Webb admitted. "Freedom is messy and dangerous, but it's better than the alternative. It's better than a galaxy ruled by fear and artificial scarcity." As if to emphasize his point, the Coalition fleet began to move, but instead of forming traditional battle lines, the ships scattered throughout the system in seemingly random patterns. Some appeared behind the Council formation. Others materialized at the edge of the system and began moving inward at impossible speeds. Within minutes, every Council ship was surrounded. "This is your last chance," Webb announced. "Order your fleet to stand down, and we'll escort you safely out of the system. Continue this attack, and we'll do what we have to do to protect the people who have come here seeking freedom." Mordak looked around his bridge at officers who had served the Council faithfully for decades. He saw doubt in their eyes, uncertainty, about whether they were fighting for justice or just trying to preserve their own power. But he was too old and too proud to back down now. "All ships," he commanded, "open fire. Target the human flagship." The battle that followed lasted less than 10 minutes. The Council fleet's weapons were powerful, but they couldn't hit enemies that moved like ghosts through space. Coalition ships appeared inside their formations, disabled their weapons with surgical precision, then vanished before return fire could be targeted. The Eternal Order itself came under attack from 5 directions simultaneously. Human ships materialized above, and below the massive dreadnought, while Zephyrian cruisers struck from port and starboard. A crystalline destroyer simply appeared in front of the bridge and fired a single, perfectly aimed shot that disabled the ship's main reactor. As emergency lighting flickered across his bridge, Mordak finally understood what he was really fighting. This wasn't a military rebellion or a political revolution. It was evolution. The galaxy was moving beyond the need for centralized control, beyond the artificial limitations that the Council had imposed. The humans had given every species the tools to shape their own destiny. "Sir," his communications officer said quietly, "the rest of the fleet is requesting permission to surrender." Mordak closed his 4 eyes and felt the weight of 3,000 years pressing down on him. Everything he had worked for, everything his predecessors had built, was crumbling around him. The age of the Council was ending. "Signal the fleet," he said finally. "All ships stand down." The surrender was broadcast throughout the galaxy within hours. The Council's final fleet, the last remnant of their military power, had been defeated without destroying a single enemy ship. More humiliating still, many of the Council ships' crews had defected to the Coalition during the battle, unable to continue fighting for a system they no longer believed in. In the weeks that followed, the old galactic order collapsed completely. Species after species declared independence from Council authority and joined the Free Stars Coalition. The Great Quantum Tunnel Gates, symbols of Council power for millennia, were gradually shut down and dismantled. Dr. Elena Vasquez stood in the observation lounge of the Coalition's new headquarters, a space station built in the asteroid belt, between Mars and Jupiter. Through the viewport, she could see ships from hundreds of different worlds docked at the station's many bays, scientists sharing research, diplomats negotiating trade agreements, explorers planning expeditions to distant galaxies. "It's beautiful," said Dr. Sarah Chen, joining Elena at the window. "I never imagined we'd see anything like this in our lifetime." "Neither did I," Elena admitted. "When I first started working on the drive equations, I just wanted to understand how space-time worked. I never thought it would lead to this." Sarah smiled. "That's the wonderful thing about discovery. You never know where it will take you." A soft chime indicated an incoming message. Elena activated her personal communicator and was surprised to see the face of Ambassador Vexathi. The former Council diplomat looked older but more peaceful than she remembered. "Dr. Vasquez," he said, "I wanted to thank you." "Thank me for destroying your empire." Vexathi's laugh was rueful. "For freeing us from it. I spent centuries enforcing a system that I knew was unjust, telling myself it was necessary for galactic stability. But you showed us there was a better way." Elena nodded. She had heard similar stories from dozens of former Council officials who had joined the Coalition. Many had spent their entire careers maintaining a system they secretly despised, trapped by the belief that there was no alternative. "What will you do now?" she asked. "The Centauran colonies have asked me to serve as their ambassador to the Coalition," Vexathi replied. "It seems my experience with interspecies relations is valuable, even if my previous employer wasn't." After the call ended, Elena returned to watching the bustling activity around the station. It wasn't perfect. There were disputes between species, arguments over resource rights, occasional conflicts that required mediation. But it was all happening, openly, with every species having an equal voice in the decisions that affected them. Admiral Webb's voice came over the station's communication system. "All department heads, please report to the main conference room. We have a proposal from the Andromeda Exploration Committee." Elena made her way to the conference room, where representatives from dozens of species had gathered. The proposal was ambitious beyond anything the Council had ever attempted: a joint expedition to the Andromeda Galaxy, using improved Alcubierre-Vasquez drives to make the journey in just over a year. "The improved drives can achieve speeds of over 5,000 times light," explained the project leader, a crystalline scientist whose body glowed with excitement. "We could establish the first intergalactic colonies within a decade." There was enthusiastic discussion about the possibilities. New worlds to explore, new species to encounter, new scientific discoveries waiting in a completely different galaxy. Under the old Council system, such an expedition would have been impossible. The resources would have been too valuable to risk, and the potential for losing control over far-flung colonies too great. But in the new system, exploration was encouraged rather than restricted. The Coalition's ships were already pushing the boundaries of known space, making contact with species that had never known about the Council's existence. As the meeting continued, Elena found herself thinking about Chairman Mordak. The old ruler had been placed under house arrest on a pleasant world in the outer systems, writing his memoirs and occasionally offering advice to Coalition historians studying the fall of the Council system. In his final interview before retiring, from public life, he had said something that stayed with her. "We told ourselves we were maintaining order, but we were really just maintaining our own power. The humans showed us what order built on freedom looks like. It's messier, more chaotic, but it's also more alive." The meeting ended with approval for the Andromeda expedition. As the representatives dispersed to their various ships and stations, Elena remained behind, looking out at the stars through the conference room's viewport. Sarah Chen joined her again. "Thinking about the future?" "Thinking about how far we've come," Elena replied. 3 years ago, we were mining asteroids and shipping rare Earth elements through Council gates. Now we're planning expeditions to other galaxies. Any regrets, Elena?" Considered the question seriously. The revolution had cost lives. The collapse of the Council system had created economic disruption and political chaos in many regions. Some species had struggled to adapt to their newfound freedom, and conflicts had broken out in systems where Council authority had been the only thing preventing old ethnic rivalries from exploding. But balanced against that were the discoveries being made every day. New worlds being settled by species that had been confined to single systems for centuries. Scientific breakthroughs emerging from collaborative research between races that had never been allowed to work together. Art, music, literature, and philosophy flowering as different cultures mixed and learned from each other. "No regrets," she said finally. "Freedom is worth the chaos." Outside the station, a ship was preparing to depart for the edge of the galaxy, carrying a mixed crew of humans, Zephyrians, and crystallines. Its mission was to make contact with isolated species that might not have heard about the Council's fall or the Coalition's formation. Other ships were heading in different directions, to establish new colonies, to set up research stations, to explore regions of space that had been off-limits under the old system. The galaxy was opening up in ways that would have been unthinkable just a few years earlier. Elena returned to her quarters and pulled up her personal logs. She had been documenting the changes in galactic civilization since the first successful test of the Alcubierre-Vasquez drive. Future historians would need to understand not just what had happened, but why it had been necessary. Her final entry read, "The Council's greatest mistake was believing that stability required control. They thought freedom was chaos, that innovation was dangerous, that different species couldn't be trusted to cooperate without strict oversight. But they were wrong. The galaxy doesn't need rulers. It needs partners. It needs explorers. It needs dreamers willing to reach for impossible things and make them real. Today we're taking our first steps toward Andromeda. Tomorrow, who knows? The universe is vast and full of wonders, and for the first time in 3,000 years, every species in the galaxy is free to discover them." As she closed the log, Elena could see through her window the lights of ships from dozens of worlds, all working together to build something better than what had come before. The age of control was over. The age of exploration had begun, and the best part was, this was only the beginning.